The Godfather is one of the greatest films ever made. But did you know the studio did not even like this version at first and went to make a completely different film. But in the end we got the film we know today. And the story behind making The Godfather is almost like a movie itself. So let's go back in time and see how it all happened. The story actually begins 2 years before the film was released. At that time, author Mario Puzo was working on a novel called The Godfather. When Paramount Pictures heard about the story, they immediately saw its potential and bought the rights. It was a completely new kind of story. At that time, a deep look into the life of a mafia family. Paramount made two offers to Mario Puzo. One was $12,500 just to option the book, and another was $80,000 if the movie was actually made. Puzo accepted the deal quickly, mainly because he was struggling with gambling debts at the time. The novel became one of the biggest bestsellers of his time, selling around 9 million copies in just the first 2 years. Even today, it remains one of the most popular fiction books ever written. Coppola was not actually the studio's first choice for this film. Many producers did not like the way he was shooting several scenes, and at one point they were almost ready to remove him from the project. Some crew members were even fired during this time. But after shooting a few important scenes, Coppola finally convinced the studio to trust him, and that is how we ended up getting one of the greatest directors in cinema history. At first, the studio went to set the film in 70s, like a typical gangster movie. They were worried that making it a period film set in the 40s would cost too much. But Coppola disagreed. He believed the story should stay in its original time period, and after a lot of convincing, the studio finally agreed, and that decision helped shape the film we know today. Casting the film was one of the toughest parts of the production. At first, the studio did not want Marlon Brando because they believed he would cause problems on set. But Coppola believed he was perfect for the role and helped him by filming an audition tape.
Hey, it's good, it's good.
During the audition, Brando said he went Vito Corleone to look like a bulldog.
And right in front of my eyes, he transformed himself into this character.
So he stabbed cotton balls into his cheeks to create that effect. But during the actual filming, he did not use cotton. A dentist actually made a special mouthpiece for him. Another interesting story involves Lenny Montana, who played Luca Brasi. Montana was actually a professional wrestler, not an actor. When he had to perform the scene where Brasi played his respect to Don Corleone, he became so nervous in front of Marlon Brando that he kept messing up his lines. Instead of reshooting everything, Coppola turned it into part of the story. He added a scene where Luca Brasi is nervously practicing what he wants to say before meeting the Don. Another interesting detail involved Richard Castellano, who played Clemenza. Surprisingly, he actually had the highest salary among the cast. When the sequel was being made, Castellano asked for a higher salary and also went a specific writer to work on his character's dialogue. Because of these demands, the character of Clemenza was eventually written out of The Godfather Part 2. Another interesting detail is that Robert De Niro also auditioned for the role of Sonny in the first film, but at that time he was still a newcomer, so he did not get the part. Ironically, a few years later he returned to the franchise and played young Vito Corleone in The Godfather Part 2. Another big problem during casting was the role of Al Pacino. The studio did not want Pacino because at that time he was almost unknown, and they believed he did not look like a strong lead actor. They wanted a bigger and more famous star for the role of Michael Corleone. But director Francis Ford Coppola strongly believed that Pacino was perfect for the character. Even after studios rejected him several times, Coppola kept insisting on casting him. During the early days of filming, the studio was still unsure about Pacino's performance and even thought about replacing him. But as the shooting continued, Pacino's performance started convincing everyone. By the end of the film, his transformation into Michael Corleone became one of the most iconic performances in cinema history. After all the chaos during production, The Godfather was finally released in 1972. The film that studio once doubted quickly became a huge success. Audiences loved it, critics praised it, and it went on to win 3 Academy Awards, including Best Picture, but the real impact of The Godfather was much bigger than awards. The film completely changed the way gangster movies were made. Instead of just focusing on crime, it told a deep story about family, power, and loyalty. The performances of actors like Marlon Brando and Al Pacino became iconic, and the film influenced filmmakers for generations. And today, decades later, The Godfather is still considered one of the greatest films ever made. proving that sometimes the movies that face the most problems during production end up becoming legends. And that is how we got the iconic film The Godfather that we know today. It is a reminder that no matter how difficult the journey is, sometimes the result turns out to be something truly legendary.